Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Classroom to Corner Office Career Talks with Chris, a podcast to help guide you through the wild world of work. Whether you're somebody new to the workforce or somebody that's there and looking for a change, this podcast is there to help support you and provide information and wisdom from those that have lived it, both the good and the bad. Today, I'm joined by Mark, who currently and kind of newly, right, has found a role with EY on the assurance staff. So we've had somebody in the past, right? Zach has worked for EY or working now for EY. I was kind of transitioning to that at the time. So we got a lot of representation from EY on this podcast thus far. So Mark, thanks for joining today and being willing to share a little bit about your career journey, however new and fresh that may be.
Yeah, of course, no problem. Thanks very much for having me, Chris.
Yeah, so you're right. You're at EY. Zach shared a little bit about that as well.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about how you got to the position you're in now. Right, you've been here since the end of September in 2025. So a lot, I'm sure, has been learned in these few months. We're recording here at the beginning of January for those that are listening. So Mark has learned a lot, I'm sure, in these first few months. But tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, no problem. I have a bit of a unique journey, I'd say, to where I am now. I was born and raised in Belfast in Ireland, grew up there. And then when I got kind of to the age of 16, I realized that I didn't want to go to university in the UK or at home. So I kind of started looking at my options. I was a pretty talented, I say, soccer player at home, or football as we call it. So I was kind of thinking, okay, what are my options to keep playing football at a high level and, study for my degree, which was the first and foremost and the most important thing for me. So I had a few friends kind of around the same age as me that had signed up with and that also moved across to America to come to college on a soccer scholarship. So I kind of looked at that path, signed up with a great agency, Stephen Murray scholarships, and then kind of took it from there. Soccer was kind of what got me to America, but it's kind of not what'll keep me here, I'd say. Studied for 4 years at West Liberty University and then 1 year at Trinity. And then in between those two colleges, I had a 3-month internship with EY last summer in their Pittsburgh office and really, really enjoyed it. Was lucky enough to get a return offer after I had finished my master's. So studied for a master's of accounting down in Texas last year and then started up, as you said, in September, and it's been a good couple of months so far.
Yeah, and those couple months, right? You had an
Mm.
internship, so you got an introduction into the working world at EY and learning a little
Yeah.
bit about that. And that was over a time that I'm sure that you had exposure to a lot of different tasks, responsibilities, and some different functions within there. So
Mhm.
ultimately, in the position you're in now, was that something that was informed by your internship experience, or was that a natural progression of that experience itself?
Yeah, for sure. I think like a lot of people, especially in my kind of master's cohort, they're going into public accounting, will go into either tax or audit, right? And just throughout college, I think enjoyed the audit classes a bit more. I enjoyed that process a bit more than tax. So that was kind of when I was looking for internships, I was more focusing on that the kind of audit side of things. And then once I was in the internship, I really enjoyed it. Like audit itself is a really team driven job and a really team driven role. And I love that, playing on football teams all my life. Then that's all I've known is really being a team player and being a part of teams. So that's one aspect of it I really enjoyed, and kind of the whole process of it all excites me, and then I enjoy the work too. So I think kind of from the internship, I was like, okay, I've got my feet wet a bit. I saw a small part of a massive jigsaw, and I was intrigued to find out a bit more. So that's what it kind of made it a no-brainer to kind of come back into audit once I'd finished up my master's.
Yeah, in these first few months, what to you has been the most enlightening, whether it's experience, moment that's kind of made you feel like, hey, I have arrived, I'm in a full-time role, and it's real now, right? I'm working with
Yeah.
real clients, and there are stakes at play that may not have been the exact same as an internship, but you have that reality of work now.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think most people, especially in kind of that started with me or would be in a similar type of role as what I'm in, would kind of have the same answer. So a lot of the time for the newer staff, like a big part of audit is obviously the inventory process and making sure everything is counted for and valued correctly. So a lot of the time, accounting firms will send out their new staff to kind of complete those inventory counts and observe them for the company. And when you turn up to the client site and people you don't really know and they're doing their inventory counts, and you're kind of realizing like, okay, this is it. I am the EY representative here. There's no one kind of tell me what to do, or there's no one. I'm not shadowing anyone. It's kind of what I do here is a reflection on the company, and I am like the representative here. So that was kind of a big. The first one I done of those, that was kind of a wow moment. Like, okay, this is on me. But having done a few of them now, it gets more and more comfortable each time. But I think that, and as well as just interacting with the clients, it's people who have a lot of the time been there, been in my shoes, been in audit, and kind of transitioned onto different jobs with like in the industry, and like just interacting with them, you kind of you realize like, okay, this is it now. I'm representing one of the big four accounting companies in the world, and that I kind of have to give a good reflection of my team and then the wider company too.
Yeah, and how does EY prepare you for that? Those client relationships, because that's not right. That's not easy, especially coming just out of your collegiate while you went to graduate school and earned that,
Hmm.
and had a chance to develop some of those interpersonal skills, probably in different ways, and with the internship. How does EY prepare you to navigate conversations with clients, which
Hmm.
sometimes are not the easiest, right?
Yeah.
You have to make not hard decisions, but you have to stick to the reality of the task at hand. And sometimes that's not the most desirable discussion or conversation that your clients want to have with you.
Yeah, no, that there's a lot of ways that they kind of that the wider firm and also like people within our team will help us out and kind of guide us when we're first kind of interacting with clients. I think they don't the inventory counts is slightly different to where you are thrown in a bit at the deep end, whereas like kind of the more interactions with the client that you're going to be working on and auditing through the year. I don't think there's not as much of a steep learning curve there. It's kind of more so like, for example, this client I first started on, like the first week I was on the client, there was a lot of like control walkthrough meetings and like kind of them taking us through their controls and stuff. And I kind of was more of a listener in those meetings. They say come along to the meetings, have a listen, take notes, and kind of just absorb everything. To where at the point where we get to this stage where I've been with the client for a couple of months, to kind of if we're in the office, I can have a better understanding of what's going on and a better relationship with them too. Yeah, we do a bunch of online web-based learnings that talk a lot about client relations and client interactions and giving you kind of different scenarios you might encounter. But I think the best way of learning is that actual experience of it and actually interacting with them. I think that's the best way to learn and develop. And ultimately, that's why I chose to work for a company like EY, that there's not many companies out there that'll give the opportunity to do that as such a young staff.
Yeah, and that speaks to as well, like the continuing education, right?
Hmm.
Just finished up a graduate degree, and they said, "Oh, here's more information for you to learn,
Yeah.
understand," and that continued engaged learning, as well as right the preparation within the team, right? Some
Hmm.
people may not get all of that support going into a smaller company
Hmm.
that you have a handful of people that are in charge of everything at all times, and they may not
Hmm.
have the time really to walk you through some of that and prepare you for some of those hiccups, barriers, roadblocks that can present themselves in any
Hmm.
industry or in any workforce area. So I think that's really good. You talked about how soccer, football, right? Let's
Hmm.
use terms
Yeah.
correctly here, right? When we're speaking of this, um, helped get you to the United States and get you to a college environment that you thought was going to be
Hmm.
helpful for you. What through your sport experience, whether that's growing up or whether that is in the collegiate area, helped prepare you to work on a team and develop
Hmm.
skills that allow you to succeed in what you're doing?
Oh, because it's a great question. I feel like I could do a whole 30-minute long podcast on just that itself. I mean, the experience well, the experience of being on a college athletics team, especially in soccer, is just one of a kind. You're all day, every day, surrounded by people from all over the world, all different cultures, upbringings, languages. You just get a wealth of experience and so many different skills. I mean, at West Liberty, I was lucky enough to be captain for 2.5 years, and just that experience of being in a leadership role with, like I said, people from all different walks of life. It's helped me to no end, and I'm forever indebted for that sort of opportunity, and I think that even stuff like this, like just something to talk about in interviews or around the table with colleagues. It's just, I mean, there's so many examples I could give. One that I will give that, you know, being a captain, at times you have to say things and do things that not everyone's going to agree with, or not everyone's going to take on board, or you might have to treat people in different ways that they might not like and other people might not like. I've been through scenarios where I had real close friends kind of be upset or disappointed with me, and you have to just say, Okay, I'm doing this for the greater good. I'm doing this for the good of the collective." And everyone might not agree with it, but at the end of the day, it's for the good of the collective, like I said. So it's such an amazing learning experience, and one that I'm so glad that I took.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's perfect. And, the
mhm,
team environment and having, access to people, like you said, from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different languages, right? That's
mhm.
even another way
Yeah.
that you have to learn how to communicate with people, that the way that you're speaking and the words that you're using are intentional. Right. And
Mhm.
especially, working at EY and in that industry, words matter. The way you
Yeah.
say something can a whole different thing to somebody in a different part of the country, or just the way that you use a term, especially when you're talking about audit and finance and assurance. I'm sure that if you use the wrong word or use it the wrong way, that can come back to have negative impacts, right, to client
Mhm.
relations and or the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and for sure, and that's something that I have to continually remind myself. Like I know the listeners will have noticed I don't kind of talk like I'm from America, or like a lot of my colleagues. I think in the core assurance practice in EY, I think there's only two internationals, so I'm kind of an outlier there. So especially, I have to remind myself, when meeting new clients, to kind of slow it down, speak clearly, and because I'm used to speaking to people that are kind of well used to the accent and stuff. Like you said, when just with that first initial interaction with the clients, it's just communicating properly and making sure you're not using any of the wrong terms or the wrong acronyms. That's a big one at EY. There's so many different acronyms and different meanings for stuff. It's hard to kind of keep up with it all. So you don't want to be using the wrong thing in the wrong place, like you said.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and right from your undergraduate to your graduate
Mhm.
education, the transition into the work that you're doing now, how intentional were those decisions as far as academic programs and then seeking a graduate degree, right? Which isn't
Yeah.
necessarily
Mhm.
required, but has definitely helped props up your CV and your resume to make you a better candidate. So, how did you
Mhm.
come to those decisions, especially transitioning from the undergraduate to graduate education?
Yeah, I think there was a number of kind of reasons why I chose to take a graduate program and to study my master's. I think, first and foremost, I loved college in America. I loved the experience of going to college, living on campus with teammates, that sort of life of work hard, play hard, get the soccer side of things, the school side of things. I loved it, and I didn't want to, I wanted another year of it. I knew that it brought out the best of me, the kind of the busyness of it all. So I knew that I wanted to keep playing soccer for another year. I had another year of eligibility. That was a kind of again helped me open doors to different schools. But then that wasn't the reason, like the be all and end all for my decision. So I think when I first entered the transfer portal, that's how I kind of got the ball rolling with it all. And then I just kind of seen what schools kind of came my way, what programs. I was very particular in the type of program that I wanted. Wanted a Master's of Science in accounting, an accounting focused program that I knew that was going to help kind of hone my audit and wider accounting skills and help me towards the CPA exam. So kind of Trinity landed upon my email one day, and it was a no-brainer because it's a fantastic program down there. It's a great environment. It's fantastic soccer program too. So I'm very glad that that was kind of the decision I took. And I would, like you said, it's not necessarily required in our field in accounting. I think I may have been one of the only ones in our kind of starting class that had done a master's program. I think there might have been two or three others, but I would definitely recommend it for anyone that, enjoys college and wants to get that kind of deeper understanding of some of the exam topics for the CPA exam, and also kind of bring that into work, of course, too.
Yeah, great. And through this transition from undergraduate to graduate into the workforce,
Mhm.
you had another layer of maybe a challenge or an unknown,
Mhm.
right? Not being from the United States and wanting to secure
Mhm.
employment within the United States. And Zach talked about this in that earlier episode about some of those challenges and identifying industries, fields, and companies that may best provide those opportunities to secure
Mhm.
some full-time work and maybe sponsor the visa. So take us through a little about how that process went for you. Were there any roadblocks or challenges, or were you one of the very lucky few that were able to make that transition
Yeah.
without many?
Oh, well, first and foremost, I am one of the luckier kinda people in that I'm sure, as well, Zach touched on this, there's kind of a lottery process for working visas, and I was lucky enough to be selected in that, so I am kinda on the current visa I'm on at the minute. I've quite a secure and a very valuable visa, so I'm very thankful for the opportunity for that. And EY were great. Like Zach touched on, they're one of the highest sponsors of visas, so they were great through the whole process. But yeah, it's a difficult moment for internationals in America. I'd say, it's an ever changing landscape. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted a kind of a longer visa, like to kind of transition on this visa, because it's quite longer and more secure. But again, I'm that it kind of, it not forces me, but it helps me, to enjoy every day and to make the most out of every day, and learn as much as I can working for EY. Because like I said, tomorrow it could change and things could be taken out of my hands. But that did play into the decision of which master's program I was gonna to study at. I won't get into all the nitty gritty of it, but certain programs are accredited in STEM, which offer longer visas. So I was kind of, the master's program that I studied at Trinity was accredited in STEM. So that gave me a longer chance at the lottery process and the longer security of, making sure I had at least that 3 years of being able to work for EY, because, I didn't want to come all this way and work so hard only for to have one shot at it, or 1 year and one shot at the lottery. So that would kind of guided my decision. And, there was a couple of different schools that I could have went to at the time for my masters, but again, visa situations didn't line up perfectly, and that kind of was just another tick for Trinity and another reason why I wanted to go there. But like I said, it's a very ever changing landscape at the minute for internationals. But I'm just trying to make the most of every day that I have here. Whether it be for another 1 month, 12 months, or 10 years. So I'm just trying to make the most out of it all.
Yeah, that's a great perspective for anybody, right? Not just
Mhm,
somebody who's, working in the United States for an indefinite period of time and may
mhm,
have to seek employment elsewhere, but just everybody, right? Once you
mhm,
secure a role, once you kind of get your feet wet in whatever that first full-time role is, right? Don't take it for granted, because
mhm,
not just right visa status or you're securing that at the start, nobody's job is guaranteed day to day, right? The economic ebbs and flows in any industry and with any company can make, especially those that are just starting out, make them expendable resources, and that's
mhm.
unfortunately a reality that many people have to deal with every day.
Yeah, you're right, especially in kinda the accounting industry too. The turnover can be high, and, with different things like AI and stuff coming up these days, as you said, the additional pressure is on. But you're right. I would kind of advise anyone that's kind of or visa situation or not to kind of follow that sort of mindset with it all.
Yeah, so we've talked a
Mhm.
lot about your education, how you got to where you
Mhm.
are. Let's talk a little bit about maybe what that those classes in the classroom and your education may not have prepared you for in the best way possible. So, for
Mhm.
anybody listening now that's about to enter the workforce or looking for some transition, what are some skills and what are some strategies that you have found along the way that have helped make you a better candidate, right, for the workforce? Whether that's,
Mhm.
you obviously had the soccer experience and being a leader, which sounds pretty integral and valuable to you. But what are some
Mhm.
other skills, and maybe some outside certifications that people could look to help bolster their resume and make them better candidates?
Yeah, great question. I think that from my point of view, I've touched on a few different things that I set out to do, or I focused on, with soccer and school, and whatnot, to kind of to make me the best candidate possible. Again, as an international, the cards are stacked against you at the start. You have to make sure you're ticking all the boxes. You have to make sure you are not. I mean, nobody's the perfect candidate, right? But you have to make sure you're as close as you can be, so that kind of all throughout college, it was okay. First and foremost, I think the most important thing is your grades. That was kind of the kind of stem of it all for me. I had to make sure that my grades were up. I was I had good grades pretty much all through college. So that was kind of the pillar of it all for me. And then beyond that, it was just kind of getting involved in as much as I can. Like, and I'm someone that enjoyed a busy schedule, but kind of at Westlib, it was just kind of taking on everything that I thought it was possible. You know, I was an RA, interned with the athletics department. I worked for the school newspaper. So that's kind of my advice, not just to internationals, but anyone. Just kind of, I get a lot of people will say, you know, quality over quantity, but I kind of tried to go for both. So I made sure I had a lot of things that I was involved in. And then through the summers, I interned with a few different kind of high profile companies at home and the US. So it was just kind of making sure that I had as many boxes ticked as possible. Then with certifications that you touched on, I think this is more kind of accounting specific, but I think companies are really putting a focus on people having their CPA exams kind of done and out of the way quicker and having that certification so that you can kind of naturally progress through the company and have that certification behind you. I know EY has given us a lot of kind of support at the minute to make sure we have those exams kind of boxed off within the next year or so here, and I'm pretty sure the other big four companies will be the same. So that's one thing. It's kind of a continuous thing as you carry into the workplace. I think, you know, not many people will have that certification before they start, but kind of, you know, when you're in the door and showing that you're committed to it and that you're committed to keep progressing, the CPA exams a great way to kind of to show that and to get focused on like making sure you have that certification.
Yeah, and you talked about some of those other experiences outside of athletics in the
Hmm.
classroom, working as a resident assistant. I think many at this point probably know that most of my background is in higher education, as well as part of that being residence life. So whether
Hmm.
that was through that RA experience or whether it was working for athletics or being part of clubs, what's
Hmm.
an experience or something you took away from one of those experiences that has retained value for you and maybe something that initially you didn't consider valuable, but over time you realized, hey, you know what? That really has helped me in looking for jobs or making me a better candidate, or this situation helped me prepare me for what was to come.
Yeah, I think collectively, almost with all the experiences that I had through college, you know, it's like again being a resident assistant, athletics, soccer. That's all. They're all like people and team based things. So I think that I really learned the value of communication and not always positivity, but being someone that was good to be around. I think, you know, when I did the internship with EY, they weren't quizzing me on, okay, what can you make of this balance sheet, or can you audit this set of controls in the right way, or are you a master of Excel? It's okay. Can I be in an audit room with this person for 8 hours of the day, and can I work well with them, and can they communicate with me? And or when I'm frustrated, are they going to make me even more frustrated? So it was kind of like, I think the whole experience of coming to America and everything that I was involved in just kind of on a personal level really improved me and really improved a lot of my personal skills. You know, like I said, communication, teaming, you know, knowing when to ask questions, knowing how to ask the right questions, just knowing how to work in stressful environments. So I'd say there's maybe not one moment through it all that would kind of stick out like that. I think it was just more of a gradual process because, you know, coming to the States, I'd say I was a bit more of an introvert than what I am now. But I think kind of that's why I'm kind of so grateful for the whole experience because it's really not brought me out of my shell, but more so just improved my overall personal skills.
Yeah, and that's an organization that I look to is NACE, the National Association of Colleges Employers. And they
Hmm.
put out surveys and they put out results annually about, hey, what are some of the skills that employers are looking for in new entrants to the workforce? And
Hmm.
routinely, right, communication, critical thinking, teamwork usually find their way in the top three or four every year. And
Hmm.
right, that speaks to what you just said, what employers are looking for. It's not necessarily all of the technical skills and that expertise, right? Some
Hmm.
of that has to be learned on the job, or at least learned how to apply it appropriately on the job. But you definitely took that communication and teamwork away, and it's something that has stuck with you and that you developed, right? You developed
Hmm.
through college and through those experiences.
Hmm.
A hot topic, right? Not just right now, it's been over, years at this point, but something you will most likely continue to have to, whether it's train yourself or be prepared to use appropriately, is artificial intelligence, right? The uses of
Hmm.
AI in your industry will continue to not going to say expand, but probably proliferate, right?
Yeah.
Exponentially grow. So, are there any uses now that you are seeing or that EY is adopting internally that are going to be helpful for you in your work, and maybe just generally the industry is going to adopt to make processes more efficient?
No, for sure. I think almost all companies have identified AI as something that can be a really useful tool in our line of work, and something that can really drive efficiency and effectiveness too. I think the big four maybe find themselves in a bit of an arms race at the minute, kind of seeing who can turn out the best chatbot or the best, financial statement enabler at the minute. I can't speak for other companies, but I know EY, like Zach touched on it too. It's invested almost $1 billion in AI, and they're still investing too. So yeah, I'd say there's a bit of a long way to go. There's a few different tools that EY are using at the minute, more so on the financial services side, the financial statement enabler, and we have our kind of own sort of chatbot too that's very, EY specific, that can help us navigate kind of our certain work papers and certain forms that are specific to the company. But I'd say there's definitely a lot more to come. I know that the firms are very wary of not trying to roll it out too fast and not kind of find themselves in any sort of legal issues, or, you know, decrease their overall audit quality. So I know they're being kind of careful that way. But we also use Microsoft Copilot. Sorry, I mean, it's fantastic, and it saves me time every day. And just kind of, I'm really, really, I think it's going to be it is super important, and I think it's just going to keep getting more and more important. So I'm really trying to, at the minute, making sure I'm proficient with it and kind of using it in a responsible way, but as much as I can, not just professionally but personally too.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put any company secrets out there, which I don't
Yeah,
think there
no,
were, right? Because I think
yeah,
all of the big four and companies that are adjacent to that industry are all exploring the same options for efficiency, but it's the
hmm
internal ways that you're developing those tools that are most useful for the work that you do, like you said, to become more efficient and effective in the work that you do. So,
hmm
but everybody's looking for that, and it's just like you said, it's almost an arms race. It's not just the money you're investing, but also investing that money effectively to get those
hmm
outcomes. So that's really important. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, want to ask, right? You've shared a lot of good bits of wisdom and thoughts about your experiences in the collegiate environment, athletically, and how that's all shaped you into the professional that you are now.
hmm
If you could give one or two bits of advice to a student right now that's sitting in a college classroom in their last semester or two, how to take advantage of those last months in the best way possible to prepare yourself for the workforce. Maybe somebody that didn't plan as well as you did, but still has time, right, to create
Yeah.
those skills and develop those talents. What's one or two things that you would really encourage someone to do in those last months of their collegiate?
I'd say first and foremost, make the most out of it. Yes, the end of your college career is an important time, with capstone projects and final projects and everything, making sure you finish with good grades, but you have to enjoy it. Y There's not gonna be really a point in your life where you're gonna have as little responsibilities as you do then. So first of all, enjoy it, make the most out of it, but also, it goes without saying, work hard. Even for myself, even people that have guaranteed job offers, the companies are still looking at your final grades and making sure you're finishing strong. So I find myself that those kind of classes that you're involved in through your senior year, maybe end of your junior year, are the most valuable. They're the most specific to what you want to do, to your major. So really, if you hadn't been paying attention through college, really pay attention to those kind of classes too. And one piece of advice I'd have, and it's more sort of specific to master's students, I'd say, I treated my master's year, again, at the start of it, I said, like, a lot of people my age are now in the workforce, and they're now going out and starting their full-time jobs. And, I've decided not to, and that's fine. But I had to treat it almost as if college and school and the different things I was involved in was a full-time job. I had to make sure that I was getting into the routine of, because it's easy to fall out of it. It's easy to wake up at 10 a.m. as a college student, stay up to 2 a.m. doing homework or whatever. So I had to kind of treat it as if, I wake up at the right time, I get to class early, kind of treat it as it's obviously not as strict as a full-time job, but treat it as if, you're preparing for that, and that's what you're going to. Because at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of your peers and a lot of your colleagues at that time will be out into the working world at your age. So
Yeah, and to that, with that transition, right? That's transitioning your body and your mind to be prepared
Mhm.
for a typical work day. So, what's one thing that you could never have prepared for, right? Transitioning into
Mhm.
a full time role or within your internship, right? No matter what you've done outside the classroom, inside the classroom, that you have to experience it to truly understand what it's like to be in maybe a fast paced environment or in a full time role.
Yeah, that's true. The fast-paced environment is definitely, it definitely is a fast-paced environment in what we work in. I'd say, in college, you can have a lot of different things going on at once, but it's like tests or projects that have deadlines for different classes. And that does prepare you, but it doesn't prepare you to have, so many different things come in at once, and so like things on your plate that need kind of done right away, and it's other people you're affecting at that point. It's other people's, whether if I can get something done to the best of my ability, whether or not I can get it done might impact someone on my team, that whether or not they can go home and see their kids in the evening, or whether or not like they can get home at 5 to go and watch their son's basketball game, or whatever it could be. I think another thing, like I said, that I tried to treat that year as kind of as a practice run at it, but that I don't think, especially not people of my generation, I don't think we can really be prepared for like the long hours of working as until you actually do it. You don't realize how long of a time 8:30 to 5:30 really is until you gotta work through it the whole day. But and I know I have a lot more of that ahead of me, but that's not really something you can prepare for. And college prepares you well for the job, but there's nothing really you can do to fully prepare yourself until you're in it. You have to be in it to know what it's about, to know what it looks like. So, and that's a challenge you kind of just have to welcome, I'd say.
Yeah, that's the long hours, especially when you get into more of a busy season, those long hours
Mhm.
become even longer hours,
Yeah.
right? 40 to 45-hour weeks become 50, 60 plus hour weeks, I'm sure. So, all right, Mark, thanks for taking time to
Mhm.
chat with me today, and again, kind of provide some perspective and some wisdom to those that maybe in any point of their career, right? Especially for you being able to share what's happened over these past 6 to 18 months to get you to where you are now. So I very much appreciate it, and I want to give you an opportunity if you have anybody specific, right, that you'd like to shout out as a mentor, somebody that's helped guide you um, to get where you are now. Feel free to, whether that's just a general shout out or individual names, whatever you want to do.
No, I think, and they would kill me if I didn't say this, but I think first and foremost, I have to give a shout out to my parents. I've been lucky to have a lot of good mentors through college and through coming to America, but they're the two that made it all possible. Without those two, I wouldn't be able to, have this opportunity in America. And they're both in different ways. My dad's a big soccer guy. He kind of led me all down that path and kind of helped me through that. And my mom, she's a really good professional at the minute too. So my mom and dad, I'd say, are the two biggest mentors. But I've been, so, like I said, so lucky to have so many great mentors through college, great professors. My two college coaches, Sean Regan and Paul McGinley, they're big people in my life too. So I've been lucky, and that's one of the great things about coming out and doing college and stuff over here, is that you meet so many great people along the way that are can be great mentors for you too. So, and that's something that I aspire to be myself too. So
Awesome. Always
yeah,
great to hear the people that have helped you get to where you are now and that you want to
yeah.
highlight, right? Because they've been important to you, whether that was inside or outside the classroom. They've helped prepare you for what you have become at this point, right? Parents
Mm.
always get that shout out, right? As they should.
Yeah, yeah. Rightfully so, but I don't think they'd be too happy with me if I didn't.
Right. Awesome. Well, Mark, thanks again. Appreciate
Mhm.
you taking time to chat. For anybody that's new that's listening, make sure that if you don't already, follow the socials, Classroom to Corner Office on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, and then Classroom to Corner Office, Career Talks with Chris on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you find your podcasts. And make sure that you tune in to the next episode of Classroom to Corner Office, Career Talks with Chris.